Hello, everybody. Hello, hello. Welcome all in from the waiting room. I saw lots of you are waiting to attend our webinar today, and I think that was a really good choice on your end because I have heard Sabrina speak so many times, and every single time I learn brand new information. And you know what? I watch a lot of these webinars, so sometimes I don't learn brand new information, but when I listen to Sabrina, I certainly do. Um, let's see. I want to hop right in. My name's Carly Euler. I am the marketing director at MemoryFox. We are a storytelling tool for nonprofits to collect, organize, and share impact stories. But today you are here for our May webinar where I am hosting one of my dear friends, Sabrina Walker Hernandez. She has been a MemoryFox partner for years. I think you have even been a partner before I even got to MemoryFox.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
I've been here for almost 3 years at this point, so we go way back.
yeah.
But yes, I have seen you present on several different topics, but I love when you talk about building better boards, especially as it relates to storytelling, because of course
Yes,
that's what we care so much about over here at
yes.
Memory Fox. So, if anybody wants to go ahead and get started, you can drop in the chat maybe where you're calling in from. I also would love
Right.
to hear what missions you're representing. I always love to think about the impact that we're having in the room. So everybody, let's drop where you are calling in from and the mission you're representing. And without further ado, I would love to kick it over to Sabrina to give us all your knowledge about building better boards, especially storytelling boards.
I'm going to try that. That is what I do. And so I'm so excited to be here with y'all today. Thank you. First of all, you had a choice about where you spent your time. So thank you for spending some time with us today. And we're going to be talking about from mission to movement, transform your board into master storytellers and turning your board into impactful advocates. Again, if you don't know me, my name is Sabrina Walker Hernandez. I'm the Dream Team Architect. I happen to host a podcast and live stream called Sipping Tea with Sabrina. So you can find me over there. And I want to get into this. I just hit enter way too many times. So, again, a little bit about me. I studied political science and public administration. I obtained a nonprofit management certification from Harvard Business School. I I love boards of directors. I'm a facilitator for all things board, international keynote speaker. I've raised $14 million in the third poorest county in the United States. That was a $12 million capital campaign and a $2 million annual operating budget. And I am a passionate advocate for community and empowering and strategic leadership. And again, the host of Sipping Tea with Sabrina. And I'm an Army veteran. I say that because I know that Chris from Memory Fox is a veteran as well. And so, well, Chris, if you're listening out there, and for all my veterans out there, thank you for your service. And so, look, I tend to start off my presentations with this PowerPoint because what I'm going to offer you is going to invite you to step outside of your comfort zone. Okay. And I don't ask anybody to do anything that I'm not willing to do. So these pictures are here for a very strategic reason. I got to update these pictures because y'all, I've done some things since then, and I might update these. But for me, this is really stepping outside of my comfort zone. Skydiving, rappelling, swimming with the dolphins. I've been up in the mountains. I've done all kinds of things, but this is stepping outside of your comfort zone. I invite you to do that. You're gonna hear some things today that you be like, my board won't do that, or I don't know, they don't even show up to the meeting. You're gonna hear some things. So I'm gonna ask you to go with me on this. Step outside of your comfort zone. Pick one thing that you're going to do that you can go back and say, I'm going to try that. And when I say try means I'm going to do it for at least 100 times before I give up on it. I'm not just going to take it back to that one meeting, do it and said it didn't work, and then give up on that idea. You got to do anything that you're going to do it at least 100 times before you know, okay, maybe this really won't work for us. And then you're going to try the next thing. So I invite you to step outside of that comfort zone. I also share this picture with you so you can know a little bit about me and my reasoning and my why. I do this. I've been in the nonprofit industry for over 30 years. In 2018, I got diagnosed with two cancers, two blood cancers at the same time. I didn't even know it could happen. I know. And I launched my business from my hospital bed. So I'm here to give you everything that I have because the cancers that I was diagnosed with, Hodgkin's lymphoma and multiple myeloma. Hodgkin's lymphoma, y'all, if you're going to get cancer, they say that's the one you get. That's like the middle class cancer caused by stress. That one's gone. It's been in remission. 2019, I got a stem cell transplant and had a partial remission for the multiple myeloma. There's no cure for multiple myeloma. So I get up, I go to sleep. I take my chemo pill, I wake up, and I live in my purpose. And MemoryFox and you have allowed me to live in my purpose. My purpose is to help you. My purpose is to make this journey a little bit easier for you. Again, I mentioned I love boards of directors. I serve on 5 boards. I know what it takes to get board members engaged in fundraising, to get them engaged in storytelling. So I'm going to share everything that I've learned on this journey because selfishly, it makes me feel good. It makes me live in my purpose and it benefits you because been there, done that, I'm doing that. So I just kind of want to level set this conversation. On a scale of 1 to 10, how comfortable are your board members with storytelling? Drop it in the chat. If you're at a 1 or 2, wherever you are, you got some people that are at 2s, 4s. All right, 4, 5s, 3s, 4. Oh, you got high performing 2s. All right, 2. Yes, I see that. So hopefully what I share with you today will take you right to that next point. So we got some 2s, 4s, 3s all across the board. Thank y'all for sharing that. But I'm going to again, so you know, this audience, you know why storytelling matters, right? But I think it's worth saying. And so our friends at MemoryFox, right? They've done a lot of research. And actually, Carly, this is an article that she wrote. Look, we know that storytelling builds connection, trust, and dollars. Connection, trust, and dollars. And statistically, we know that nonprofits that effectively use storytelling in their fundraising efforts have a donor retention rate of 45% compared to 27% for organizations that don't focus on storytelling. So I'm loving you guys because you're focusing on storytelling. Now we're going to be a little strategic to focus even more to help with that donor retention rate. We also, statistics show that 57% of people who watch nonprofit videos on YouTube go on to make a donation. I don't know about y'all, but I'll be watching the cats and the dogs. That's all that comes up on my YouTube and my Instagram reel and my TikTok, and it usually leads to a donation, and I have done it. So the videos work 57%. And for those that saying, well, I ain't got cute animals, it's okay. Whatever your mission is, we can get there. That's what we're here for. Also, fundraising campaigns that incorporate video receive 114% more funding than campaigns that don't, which tells us that facts tell, but stories sell. You got to paint the picture and stories sell. And so, with that in mind, your board has some very much hidden potential inside that boardroom. You're sitting on a gold mine and you just need the help to get them to see it. Your board members, like I said, I serve on 5 boards, y'all. I know it seems impossible, but let me just say 2 of those are fundraising boards, 3 are boards where I give out money. So that makes my life easier. But we all come with lived experiences. There's a reason why we said yes to this mission. We have a personal passion for your mission. There is a reason why we said yes to time, talent, and treasure. There's a reason why we show up to the meetings. There is a reason why. And then not only that, we have unique relationships with your audience. So when I say unique relationships with your audience, I'm not talking about with your client, because I know sometimes as nonprofit folks, we immediately go into client. No, with your audience, what I'm talking about is with your donors, right? If you do this right, your board members should be bringing credibility and relationships to the organization. And because they're bringing that credibility and relationship to the organization, they are positioned to interact with those donors and to be able to share the stories with the donors. Now, that's all good and grand. That doesn't necessarily mean that that's what your board members are thinking when it is happening, right? And so your job is to educate and equip them. So always with nonprofits, because I sat in that CEO seat for 20 years, it always goes back to fundraising. What does this have to do with fundraising? Well, if your board has the ability to connect with the donors in the community, you need to equip them with stories. And through equipping them with stories, that helps with the fundraising process. So I want to be able to tell you, or I want to move forward with level setting what the fundraising process is and how your board can play a role in that and where storytelling comes. So give me a moment to share that with you, because I want us all on the same page as we move through this conversation. So the fundraising process is 10% is identifying, right? That's as a board member, I'm always at events and I grab up those program books and I'm like, oh, such and such donated to this event, or oh, I see that they are part of their annual giving. I'm doing that constantly. That's identifying. And then 10% of fundraising is qualifying. So that is, just because they gave to this organization over here does not mean that they're going to give to my organization. I have to qualify them. Do they have a passion for my mission? Do they have the ability to give, right? So that's 20%. That's your board members. I call them door openers. And when they are door openers, they need stories to share when they are opening the door to that relationship to your organization. So your door openers need those stories. And that's 20% of fundraising. Now, 60% of fundraising is cultivation. That's building relationships. They definitely need the stories because that's the largest part of the fundraising pie. They are out taking people to dinner, eating lunch with them. They are on the phone with them. They are asking them for advice. They are getting them in to do tours of your facility if you happen to be facility based. They are hosting your house parties. Those are cultivation activities. And you definitely need storytelling in that process. That's 60% of fundraising. And then 5% of fundraising is asking. I let that sink in. Only 5% of fundraising is about asking for money. And usually this is where we get stuck because we let that fear of the five take over. But yes, you need storytelling when you're asking as well. And then 15% of fundraising, it's thanking. That's maintaining the relationship. You need storytelling there as well because you want to share that impact. So the fundraising process formula, this is where Your board fits in. I'm going to do a little side note because I really want you to understand this. Your board members can either be door openers, where they identify and qualify people, they can be cultivators, right, where they build those relationships by asking for advice, taking people out to dinner, lunch, breakfast, hosting events, doing those tours. And when I say events, I'm not talking about special events. I'm talking about events like house parties where you're doing fundraising, right? um, Picking up the phone and calling people. Those are the cultivators. Then the askers are, will you consider an investment of, this is such and such story, will you consider an investment of $10,000? Let me level set for you again. I had a board of 21 people. Out of the 21 people, only 3 of them was okay with the ask. Only 3. So I want you to get your mind right and understand that. But that did not stop us from raising $2 million every year in the third poorest county in the United States, because my board understood the fundraising process and they understood storytelling, and they did it from their strength. And again, some of them were door openers, most of them were cultivators, because that's what we needed. Some of them were askers and some of them were thinkers. But in each of those roles, they told very specific stories. So now that you understand that and where I'm going with that, right? Why currently are your board members not sharing stories? So if you look at your board and you say, oh, I have some board members that are door openers, they have to tell stories. Cultivators, they have to tell stories. Askers, they have to tell stories. And thinkers, they have to tell stories. But I'm going to do this, Sabrina, because you told me step outside of my comfort zone. So I'm going to try to do this. Well, before you try that, you need to also understand there's some common barriers to storytelling. And so that's why I say do something 99 times or 100 times before you give up on it, because you're going to have to get over certain things from people's perspective. One of them is the fear of public speaking, right? So if you have a board member that's a door opener and they have a fear of public speaking, you don't want to put them in front of the Rotary Club to do a presentation. So you're going to have to help them on that part. You got to think, some people think they need the perfect stories. These are the little challenges and the barriers that we put in front of us. Or some of your board members honestly do not know what stories to tell. That that is an honest feedback that I have heard from board members. They don't know what stories to tell. And so here's my tip to you. You don't need a stage, you need a moment. And so when I talk about moments, here's something concrete that you can do if you're not already doing it. One is mission moments. You're going to start your board meeting off with a client impact story. Preferably, the client shares the story. So, a little bit of background about me again. I served 20 years in the Boys and Girls Club. So, every board meeting, the first 5 minutes of the board meeting was mission moments. I had a cute kid come in and say, this is why they go to the after school program. My board members would ask them questions about what they like and what they didn't like. And then they would share their story, what grade they're in, why they come, all of that stuff like that. It was twofold. Twofold. One, it gave my board members stories that they could tell when they were out in the community. If they were out at the chamber, if they were out at the Rotary Club, if they were out at a business function, church, I don't care where they at, it gave them stories. They don't remember the data points. But when they can see, taste, and smell the mission, because you have someone there telling the mission, they will remember that. They will remember little Sabrina came into the meeting and said the reason why she came to the after school program was because both her parents worked and she would be home by herself. They will remember that little Sabrina said the one thing that she didn't like about the club was when it rained, it flooded. They will remember that, and that will motivate them. That's exactly how I got my board to embark on a $12 million capital campaign. After the 50th kid comes in there and complains about the water and the flooding, then they realize they had to do something. So it's being very strategic. Let me help those. So if you are an animal, let's say if you, because a lot of my clients, animal shelters, right? Bring in the dog, bring in the cat, bring in the rabbit. It's okay. How long have they been in the shelter? How did they get there to the shelter? What condition were they in? What has their journey been? That's the mission moment. You can have a client, a staff come in and share the mission moment. One of my most favorite mission moments was a zoo board, and sorry if you heard this before, but I'm still saying it. I'm still talking about it. Is they brought in a snake into this board meeting, and we got to touch the snake. We got to feel the snake. We got to do all the things with the snakes that I don't do with snakes. Okay, that should be a picture out of my comfort zone that I don't do with snakes. But what do you think I was talking about after that meeting? The snake and what we did. I'm still talking about it years later. When I say years later, I mean over 25 years ago, y'all. I'm still talking about that experience. So you got to create those moments for your board so they're out in the community talking about them and their experience on the board. And if that doesn't feel comfortable for you, it's not where you're at right now, you can do mingle moments. So one of the boards that I serve on is 24 of us. We don't get a lot of time to interact with each other outside of the boardroom. And when I got on that board, I probably knew less than half of the people in the room. And so mingle moments is what this organization uses because the board is pretty large. And so they take 5 minutes out and you partner up and you say, you have a conversation on why did you say yes to being the board member, right? We talk to each other about that and we learn about each other. It gives us stories. One of the questions that was asked is, what moment made you proud of this organization? Oh, that was an interesting conversation, right? We paired up, we came back. The CEO asked what came about from that conversation, and all these moments rose up. And we're sharing these stories and we're hearing these stories so that when we go out to the community, we have those stories. And then here's another one. What story do you tell friends about your involvement with the organization? A couple of things are going to rise up for you there. One, some people might realize they're not even talking about the organization with their friends. That is an aha moment. So then that opens up the opportunity for you as the CEO, the ED, to say, we need to be doing this. We need to be talking about our organization. Everybody should know that you serve on this board. You should be proud to serve on this board. What do you need from us to help you move in that direction? So these are mingle moments or mission moments to pick. Like I said, you don't have to do both. Do one. Do one if you want to. Start off with mission moments if that's easier for you. Make that, part of operationalize that with your board. And when that becomes operationalized, if you feel like you need mingle moments, then do mingle moments. It's what works for your organization. But the goal is to get the storytelling juices flowing, right? To put it in practice. And so when you're putting it in practice, I wanted to share some field tested techniques with you that work because a lot of times, remember those barriers, people think they need a perfect story. They don't know how to tell the story. So this is about educating your board. Let's not make the assumption that they come to the boardroom in a neat packet and they're already trained and they know exactly what to do and they know exactly what to say because my gosh, they are professionals in their own right. So of course they know this. Let me tell you, of course they don't know this. So you have to be responsible for educating your board. So here's some techniques, right? So when you're talking about this, how do you tell the story? I wanted to give you some very clear examples. So you could do the why, how, what. Why? I joined this board because I believe every child deserves a safe place to dream, grow, and be seen, not just survive. Growing up, I had a teacher who believed in me when no one else did. That changed the entire trajectory of my life. I see the same spark in kids we serve today. How? That's the transformation. At in my case, it was Boys and Girls Club. We don't just offer after school program. We provide mentorship, meals, and a space where students feel like they matter. I've seen shy, overlooked kids blossom into confident leaders just because someone showed up for them consistently. And then the what? What is the call to action? We can't do this alone. That's why I'm inviting you to partner with us, whether through your donation, your voice, or your time, because when we invest in one child's potential, we're changing an entire community's future. Now, that call to action, depending on where they're at in that fundraising process, are they a door opener? The what would be we invite you to partner with us by coming in and taking a tour of our organization, right? If they are a cultivator, what does that mean? I we invite you to partner with us, and I would love to start this relationship with you so we can learn more about you, so we can align what programs would resonate with you the most. If you're asking, right, you end it with, we're inviting you to partner with us, and will you consider an investment of $10,000? You know the right number because you've spent time in cultivation. You just don't make it up, right? You've cultivated them, you know the right number. And then if you're in the thank you, we can't do this alone. That's why I'm inviting you to partner with us, and you can say thank you for your time. And if you have anyone else in your circle that you feel would our mission would resonate with them, we would love for an introduction. Whatever that call to action is, and where they are in the fundraising process, right, will determine what that call to action is. So that is start with your why. Your why, I'm here as a board member. This is how the organization do it. And then the what is the call to action. And depending on, again, where you're at in that fundraising process, if you're a door opener, a cultivator, a asker, or a thanker, what is your call to action going to be? That is a great example there. Here's another example that you can use with your board members when you're sitting down and you're trying to figure out this and formalize it. You can do a three-part story arc: the before, the change, and the after. So I'm an example girl. I put an example up here. You may get a copy of this presentation so you don't have to remember these stories, but the before, the change, and the after. So Miguel, age 12, spent afternoons alone in an empty apartment while his parents worked late shift. His grades were dropping, especially in math and reading. Isolated and unsupervised, he filled hours with video games. I was worried constantly, his mother said. We had to choose between paying rent or finding supervision. Here's the change. Miguel joined our Bright Futures After School program, where he found structure, academic health, and connection. Our staff recognized his aptitude for science and paired him with a mentor who helped with homework and introduced him to STEM activities. The first time I saw him building a robot with other kids, I knew something profound was happening, our program director observed. After, now Miguel's math scores have improved by 2 grade level. He leads our robotics club. His parents have peace of mind during work hours. This program doesn't just help with homework, it gave my son his confidence back, his mother shares. And for the first time, he talks about going to college. Last year, our Bright Futures program, this is if you are asking, last year our Bright Futures program served 125 children like Miguel, with 93% showing improved academic performance, 89% reporting enhanced social and emotional well-being. For just 1,200, we can provide a full year of after-school support for one child, offering not only a safe place after school, but a launch pad for future success. Sounds like a lot. Where did this story rise up from? This story rose up from mission moments. Miguel got invited into the boardroom. Miguel, board said, why you come to the after school program? Miguel says, I was struggling. I was going home by myself. My parents was working all the time, and I felt like I was alone all the time, and my grades were dropping. And my teacher suggested I should go to an after school program, and my mom didn't know if they could pay for it. And so that's when they told her they had a program at the Boys and Girls Club, or the Bright Futures program. So she signed me up. And then when I got here, I realized that I like STEM. I like robotics. I like hanging out with the other kids, right? And the after is, as because I'm in all of these things at my club, they see my report card, they look at it, my grades have gone up. Blah. These are the stories that rose from the mission moments. You take those stories, formalize them. Your board members will tell them the way I told them. They will remember Miguel's story. So, before change art, you are equipping your board members from the boardroom to the coffee shop. Why are you doing that? You're doing that because they're going to be your cultivators. Again, they're the cultivators, right? They should be taking people out to breakfast, to lunch, to dinner, making phone calls to those people. They need these stories so that when they're out there, they're sharing them. They're going to be telling these stories on thank you calls. I see that you recently donated to the organization. I want to thank you so much for your donation. Because of your donation, kids like Miguel will continue to have access to after school programs. Thank you so much. That's all I called to say, was to just say thank you. Thank you calls. And if it's not a thank you call, then it's a thank you note. But in that thank you note, it's going to have the script, and that script is going to focus on stories like Miguel, and they're going to write it in their handwriting. Networking events, when they're out, you guys will hear me say this all the time, when they're out at the Rotary. It's because I happen to be a Rotarian. I've been a Rotarian for over 25 years. If you're not a Rotarian and you're raising money in your community, go join Rotary. um, Chamber member, city council, all these networking events. They need to tell the stories, because they won't remember the data, but they will remember Miguel's story. They will remember little Sabrina's story. Whoever's story, they will remember that story. They need to be sharing that story at church, at the gym, at family gatherings. All of this, all the people in their circle of influence should know that they serve on your board. And it's not going to happen overnight. You have to educate your board in this process, okay? Do not expect them, once again, to know what to do. And then ultimately, if they are involved in fundraising, you want to make sure that the stories are connected in the fundraising ask, which we went over that. So you need a heart story. I know people always say get your elevator pitch, and we have done the elevator pitch. You can use these, but you have to make sure your elevator pitch connects to the heart. Elevator pitch needs to connect to the heart. You need a heart story. There is a reason why we see the little dog on the ASPC, little sad eyes. Y'all can tell I'm an animal advocate. But there is a reason why. It's the heart. You got to connect with the heart. And so, as your board members are listening to the mission moments, or if you're doing the mingle moments, it's all about the heart connection. And are you creating that for them in your boardroom? Or are your board meetings really about committee reports? And is your board meeting really about, well, we need to get this fundraised, and you got to start with the heart. If you capture the heart, that's going to help you capture everything else. And so it's about embedding, again, storytelling in your board culture. You got to add storytelling to board agendas, where there's mission moments, mingle moments. Add storytelling to your board agenda. You could do monthly story spotlights. I'm going to give you a couple of examples here. Monthly story spotlights. I will share one of the boards that I serve on. They do monthly stories spotlights, and they incorporate the monthly story spotlights into the thankers over here. So the CEO identifies 3 to 5 people that we're thanking that month, and they hand write out cards and they pass them around to the board members to sign. And as they're passing around the cards, the CEO is explaining why that particular person is getting a card that month. And if they have pictures of that person interacting with the mission, they show that while the cards are being passed around. And so, for example, one of the stories that I remember is our district attorney attended one of the events and did it's a cultural museum of South Texas history, and I might have mentioned it before, but we have this thing called Heritage Day or Ranch Day. And he came out and he did this, like pulled out this whole pit, y'all. I'm in Texas. I think it was pan de campo, and he made like all these pan de campo. And so we were sending a thank you note to the DA for participating in that activity. And so that's a story. So now when I see the DA in the community, I get to say as a board member, hey, thank you for showing up for that. I wasn't able to attend that one, but I heard that you attended and I saw your pictures, and I heard it was a good thing. Right. So I'm able to make that connection with them. Some of the other monthly story spotlights have been around um, people who have given consistently to the museum. Maybe not at the $1,000 a level every year, but they've given $25 every year for the last 30 years. We recognize and honor them. And when I see them in the community, I'm able to say, you know, thank you for supporting our mission at such a consistent rate. If it was not for donors like you, our doors would be a challenge. We know we can count on you. So those monthly story spotlights, right? And then another one is pair new board members with storytelling mentors. I say just pair new board members with mentors, period. Because when you are a new board member and you're coming onto that board and you come to that first meeting, especially if you haven't had an orientation, you are lost. I guarantee it. You have lost because I've served on the board, no orientation, and I'm lost. And I'm lost for over a year, y'all, more than a year. And it's a little frustrating. So pairing new board members up with mentors, and especially one that is good at storytelling, because they can feed those stories to them and help them understand how storytelling really impacts fundraising. I happen to be a mentor on one of the boards that I serve on. It's a thankless job. Um, and it's with a fellow board member who is an artist. So y'all know artists are a little bit different. And I always have to bring him back down to earth when he wants to do all these things. But I've really helped him develop the storytelling skills that he needs in order to tell the story of the organization. And so if you want to create a culture, you need to create a culture where stories are currency, because stories lead to money, and you have to be intentional about it. It has to be so intentional that it just becomes standard operating procedure and is something that would continue on. And so, 3 opportunities here, pick one. Like I said, you ain't got to go in and try to do all of this. I know where you're sitting at. Pick one and do that one. And do it for at least 100 times. And I promise you, it will make a difference. And so I just want to recap. I want to share with you what um, I've given you today. And I want to, beyond that, open it up for questions, because I think that oftentimes we get in our own way. So there is untapped power. Your board has stories, right? They have their own story. They have their story of why they said yes to joining this board. They have their story of half of my board members for my organization, half of them were alumni of our program. We tapped into alumni. They have their passion for the mission. Are you allowing them the opportunity to be able to tell their story, right? Are you making it available and educating them and equipping them on that? And if you're not, we talked about the toolkit, which is some simple frameworks, right? The the why, the how, the what, the three-part arch. These are very simple frameworks that you can sit with your board and unlock their voices. Just turn that how, the what, the why, the how, the what, turn it into a worksheet and have your board members sit and do that worksheet. Okay, remember when I said I was going to ask you to step outside of your comfort zone? That's one of those outside of the comfort zone moments because I can already hear you. My board won't do that. Meetings are already 2 hours long. Well, I'm going to tell you, you need to, if your meetings are 2 hours long, you need to fix your agenda. And your agenda needs to focus on what matters. And what matters is educating your board and fundraising. That is what matters. It does not, your committee reports don't matter. Put it on the consent agenda. Your CEO report doesn't matter. Put it under consent agenda. Your board agenda should be talking about the future, not what happened in the past. So if you're spending 2 hours going over reports, put it under consent agenda. And when I say consent agenda, that means it's one motion that approves everything. We don't talk about each item under consent. I have already cut out an hour of your board meeting so that you can focus on the things that are going to move the needle. Oftentimes, we have these agendas and we don't adapt our agendas to the real world, and the real world is where storytelling, fundraising, and the boardroom collides. So print the worksheet. Very simple. Have them write it out. Use 20 minutes of board education on your agenda. Get rid of the committee reports. Get rid of the CEO reports. If your board insists on you doing a CEO report, that is nice. Put it in the packet, put it on a consent agenda. Okay. And then we talked about the strategy. You make storytelling a part of your board DNA, whether that is mission moments or mingle moments, whatever you choose to do, you got to make it a part of the DNA. And here's the final question that I have for you is what stories will you tell this week? I would love to hear, and I think I see some questions there, but I would love to hear what questions you have. I would love to hear what stories you're going to tell this week. These are the things that matter. I'm very much about coming to these webinars, listening to the information, and then saying, what piece can I take away that's going to help my organization move the needle? And particularly with my board and fundraising, what am I going to take from this to get that needle moving? I do want to say I'm going to stop sharing a few minutes. This is my contact information. That's my real cell phone number. If you're not saved in my phone, I'm not going to answer. You leave me a voicemail and I'll call you back. But if you ever wanted to reach out to me, that is my email and that is my website. And you can mostly find me hanging out on LinkedIn, actually. So I'm going to stop share to see what questions we have.
Hey, Sabrina.
Hey,
Wow, loved that. I mean, I thought you had really so many good points throughout the whole presentation. I loved how you started with the journey of a board member and really that really only just a small portion of their journey actually is the actual ask, which makes sense when the way you explained it, right?
yeah,
And I think that is important to remember that there's so many other things that we need board members to consider and to focus on, and then we can do that ask as well. And I actually really love that you actually mentioned that thanking was 15%, which is 3 times more than the ask. I mean, that's super cool.
It is. If you add up 60, which is cultivator, and 15, which is thinking. So cultivating is building relationship, and 15 thinking is maintaining a relationship. 75% of fundraising is relationship. That's what it is. And so how do you build relationship? Through storytelling. And so if you can get your board good at the storytelling, then you're going to get them good at fundraising. And I know I rolled my eyes when I sat in that seat as a CEO because I was like, I just want my board to ask for money. But I was frustrated because they didn't. It's uncomfortable for them. So I had to look at fundraising in a different way. And what can I get them to do? I can definitely get them to identify, qualify, and cultivate. And if I can get them to do that, then when it comes time for the sit down meeting, I can say as the paid CEO, will you consider an investment of $25,000? Because they've already built the relationship. And sometimes they built it so well, I don't even have to ask. The check will come in the mail. I've had a $30,000 check come in the mail
Woo.
from cultivation. Now, that don't happen every day, y'all. Let me be honest. But it
Right.
does
Who's writing
happen.
checks anymore? No, I'm just kidding.
Right? All right. So Rosa
No,
said
I
this is
love
really
it. I
good.
love it. Okay, so
Okay.
actually what you just said really brings me to a great question that came into the Q&A, which was um, you talked a lot about mission moments in person, bringing that dog in, bringing that rabbit in, but do you have any suggestions if you are a virtual board or having a virtual board meeting? Any tips for that?
Oh yeah, I happen to serve on a virtual board. We all live in the same community. They just don't want to get out of their house. Our meetings are late, but so this is how we do that every month. This is the challenge that we issue to the board members. We are all looking for mission moments. And so what we do is at the top of the board meeting, the first 5 minutes, we open up the floor for the board for a board member to share their mission moment.
Oh,
And without fail, there is a board member who has a mission moment. They'd be like, oh, for example, I'm gonna give a real life example. Maurice, who's the owner of Edible Arrangements, and he was saying that he was so happy that we have the first Friday because it's his time to come out and to connect with the community. And we go into that. And so it has not been without fail that your assignment is you need to have a mission moment because, and be looking for those because for a virtual meeting, we're going to ask it at the top of every board meeting.
I love that. And once you start that process, people can start thinking, oh, when the next board meeting comes around,
Yes.
I want to make a note that I tell
That's
that thing.
exactly what
Yeah.
happened. That's
Mhm.
exactly what happened. They'd be like, "Oh, I made a note of it because I know we have the mission moment. Oh, I have one. I have one."
Right.
And that's how it
It's like
tends
a
to happen.
classic show and tell sort of
Yes.
situation.
Yes.
I love that. All right, another question came in the chat from Jacqueline. Jacqueline, she's wondering if you could go ahead and clarify the distinction between identify, qualify, and cultivate.
Okay. So identifying is a simple process of just who are who's giving in the community, right? So identifying is not even just who's giving, but also who do you know? So,
Hmm.
for example, an exercise that I do with board members is I call it a list generator. So, it's a list of things like name, because as soon as you start asking people about fundraising, they go, I don't know anybody with money. I don't know anybody.
I've
It's
never met
natural.
anybody that's
I
had
know.
money ever in my life.
Yeah, it's natural. And so the whole goal is just it's not about money. It's just about identifying who you know. And so I have a sheet that says name 2 people that you know that you do business with. Name 2 people that you know that you go to church with. Name 2 people that you know that are in a civic club. Name 2 people that you know whose kids are in the school district. Name 2 people, and it's a whole list. So by the time you get through that, you should have about 40 people that you
Right.
know, right? So that's identifying. That's one way of identifying. Another way of identifying is I go to a lot of events. I go to a lot of galas. I go to a lot of them. So I take their program books and I'd be like, oh, they gave. Oh, they gave. They gave. That's identifying, right? So those two pieces. Now, once you've identified them, just because you know, like I know Carly, right? That doesn't mean that Carly is passionate about kids.
Right.
So now I got to
Historically, I
qualify.
don't like children. No, I'm just kidding.
I had somebody who didn't, but right. So that means I got to qualify her, right? So qualify me. Is she passionate? Let's take kids because that's why I spent a number of years. Is she passionate about kids? Right? She might not like kids. I had somebody who didn't like kids. Let's change it to animals. Does she like animals? Let's change it to vets. I happen to be a vet. Is supporting vets her thing? Great. Bye, Rosa. So that is qualifying, right? So now, yes, Carly likes kids. Oh, now I gotta qualify. Does Carly have the ability to give? Well, we know, yes, she has the ability to give. We're not talking about thousands. We just talk about in general. Does Carly have the ability to give? That's qualifying. So that's 10% as identifying, 10% is qualifying. That's 20%. That's your door opening, right? Now, cultivating is where you've identified Carly, you have qualified Carly. Now somebody has to build a relationship with Carly. That is where cultivation is. How are we going to build that relationship with her? Okay, I'm going to pick up the phone and call her. I might take her out to dinner, lunch, breakfast. I might call her and ask her for advice. I'm going to make sure she signs up on our newsletter. I'm going to make sure she follows us on social media. If I happen to be facility based, I'm going to invite her in for a tour of the facility. That's all that relationship building. That's what cultivation is. There's the top 6 ways to cultivate face to face. That is why meetings, taking them to lunch, breakfast, face to face. Phone calls is number 2. Number 3 is newsletters, you know, getting that print stuff. Number 4 is volunteering, some people are hands-on people. You might want to get them in to volunteer. And then number 5 is like events, not fundraising events, like house parties, right? Those type of events. And then number 6 is asking for advice. So we have this thing. I'm trying to check the time. I love talking about this stuff. So I
You're
have
fine.
this thing with my board. When if they were cultivators, we called it the 5x5 plan. So each of my board members had 5 people that had been identified and qualified. So Carly's one, and they had 4 other people, and they had to touch those 5 people at least 5 times in that year before we asked them for money. That was cultivation. 5 accounts, touch those 5 accounts 5 times, face to face meeting, phone call, get them on the newsletter, invite them in for a tour, ask for advice.
Smart.
Then they moved into now we can ask for money because that's the other question people always ask. Well, how far in a relationship can we ask them for money? 5x5, 5 touches, 6 touches to ask.
I love that. That's yeah, such a good point. I don't know. Let's see. I think I don't know if anybody else has any other questions. Couple things that were dropped in the chat from Tamello, very true and inspiring. From Luke, he said, our organization has quite a few people outside the board who also play an integral role
Yes.
in cultivating community relationships that would
Thank
benefit
you.
from storytelling. You've inspired me to explore the idea of creating a more mission moment style story sharing sessions as part of any culture building events we do. That's great.
Yes, and committee meetings too.
Oh,
If you
yes.
can start your committee meetings off with a mission moment too. That's good.
I
You
have a
got it, Luke.
question.
You got it.
Yeah, good
Yay,
job,
Luke
Luke.
got it.
I have a question. So if we're thinking about maybe adding somebody new to your board, or maybe like somebody has left your board, somebody that historically has filled a specific role, maybe I don't know, like maybe an example is that they are a lawyer and they have like a law background or something like that. How would you go about like finding someone to kind of not replace them, but kind of refill that role? Is there like a certain protocol for something like that?
Um,
I mean, because it's
I'm in my
identifying,
head,
but
but
how would
it's
you?
identifying, but my
Yeah,
head immediately went to is the board recruitment process.
right,
Because the board recruitment process is much like the fundraising process, which
right,
people don't realize. It is identifying a pool of candidates, and then you're cultivating that pool of candidates. So I would identify a pool of attorneys or people with that
right.
background, and then we would cultivate them, right? And in that cultivation process, you're going to ask some questions, and then you might invite them in for, a board interview. And then from that board interview, then they invite them into a board meeting to see if this is something that they want to do. So that same fundraising process, you can plug it in for board recruitment
Mm,
process as well.
awesome. All right, fresh question just came in the chat for our last couple of minutes here. What, oh, this is one you probably have seen before. What do you do with a board that doesn't integrate, I think maybe
hmm
interact much, and is not willing to help with fundraising? What are we gonna do?
So what you're going to do is a couple of things, and you're not going to like my answer. So my first question is a self-reflective question. Here's the deal, and I'm gonna I can I only know how to be direct. So here's the deal: has the expectation for the board changed? One,
Mm,
because when we recruit board members, this is what I have heard people say out of their mouths: is we don't want to talk to them about fundraising because that's going to scare them off.
right,
So you didn't talk about fundraising during the recruitment process, and now they're on your board and they don't want to fundraise. You should
mm,
not be shocked. That's one. Now, if you did talk to them about fundraising and they're on your board, then what's the next step, right? And so if they are on your board and you did talk to them about fundraising and they just won't fundraise, my question is, how are you qualifying fundraising? Are you saying they won't ask for money?
right.
Or are you saying they won't even build relationships? Are you saying they won't be a door opener? So I always say, what is the true resistance and what are you measuring them by? Because I had to get over my frustration of my board members won't ask people for money.
Right.
And I had to say, okay, if my board won't ask people for money, then that's only 5% of fundraising. What will they do?
Right.
And
I
what
mean,
I
why do they want to be a part of the board, right? What
right.
are they looking to get out of it for themselves and for the organization?
Right, right. And then so if they were willing, because I had a board member straight up, she was like, I ain't asking for money. I don't like begging. I won't do it. Straight up
That's a
conversation.
mindset then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, Millie. And I call her name and she knows I use her name all the time as an example. What are you willing to do? And she's like, I'm willing to introduce you to anybody that I know. I said, okay, then you're a door opener. Thank you. So she worked in the bank in the BSA department. She was compliance and fraud. So who does she know? She knew the bank owner. She knew the bank owner. She knew the bank president. She
Nice.
knew those people. And so then I had to say, okay, you're a door opener, Millie, but this is what a real door opener does. They don't just say, oh, I know this person. No, you say, I know them and I'm going to introduce them. So she introduced me to the bank owner. She introduced me to the bank president. And not
Mhm.
only did she introduce me to them, she would stop by their office and she would say, hey, this is what's happening at the club this week. This is what blah blah blah. She would give little testimonials about what was happening and all the good work that we were doing.
Love
And
that.
then she would tell me, hey, Mr. Rogers eats at breakfast at this restaurant every day.
Right.
And so where was I for breakfast at least once or twice a week? I would go where Mr. Rogers was at so I could stop by his table and say hi. So They could be door openers, but you got to
Mhm.
train them to be the best door openers that they could be. Millie never asked for a dime, but the bank president became my chair of my capital campaign, which was a $12 million capital campaign.
Wow.
She never asked for a dime, but I got to fly in a private plane to go up and ask the Maybe Foundation for $350,000 because the bank had a private plane. And I credit all of that to Millie, who
Yeah.
never asked for a dime. And when all
So
else
good.
fails, if you've done the training, you've given them their strength, you blah, 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 then you just plaque them and thank them off the
Right.
board. You
Right.
celebrate them. Thank you for your time. Thank you so much. You make it a big deal. You give them a plaque in front of their friends and family, and you say thank you off the board.
I love that. Well, we have come to our hour. Went so fast. Of course, we all learned so much. So thank you, everyone. If you're still here, drop some love in the chat for Sabrina. Looking forward to hearing what you all thought was the best thing you learned, something that you're good. She said we're going to implement one thing, right? One thing you learned today, you're going to implement. You're going to try it 100 times. Looking forward to hearing from some of you to see what you learned and what you maybe some tweaks you've made. Definitely, any of our MemoryFox storytellers would love to help you set up some campaigns that you could collect board stories. We would love to get you worked set up with that. So thank you so much, Sabrina. And now, if anybody would like to stick around, I would love to share just a few minutes, about 5 minutes. I'd love to talk about exactly what we do here at MemoryFox. You're welcome to stick around. And as always, everybody will be getting the recording shortly. So thank you so much, Sabrina.
Thank you. And yes, to the person, I was trying a new Zoom image thing. Didn't work out as quite as well. So we'll make sure we fix that.
We gave it a try, though. I thought it was pretty fun, actually. But yeah, always worth a try, right? Okay, so wanted to just if anybody's wanting to learn a little bit more about MemoryFox, maybe you are not quite a storyteller. Maybe you have, maybe you're just starting your storytelling journey. Maybe you're a seasoned storyteller and you're just looking for a new tool that can really help you up your storytelling game. Well, that's what we do here at MemoryFox. I love starting off with this question that is, if someone asks, what is your mission? Can you show them? And I want to tell you that if for some reason you're thinking, well, no, I really I don't feel like I have an adequate way to show somebody my mission, I want to now ask, what is stopping you? When we talk to nonprofit professionals, we find that there are 4 pain points that tend to stop people from either starting or continuing storytelling. So number 1, collecting content from our community is like pulling teeth. Number 2, organizing content is frustrating and very time consuming. Number 3, we need a more efficient and modern way to share our story. Or number 4, I struggle with collecting community stories ethically. So here at MemoryFox, we actually came up with a technology solution that directly addresses all 4 of these pain points. So we actually are built by a 3-step process, which is to collect, organize, and share. I'm going to go over each one of those real quickly today. But I also want to say that we recognize that nonprofits have been given the impossible task of competing in the attention economy while also remaining true to ethical standards for authenticity and storytelling. So you might feel like, for-profit brands, they're just not held to the same standard. And you would be correct. You are held to a higher standard of competing in this vast attention economy while also adhering to ethical standards of collecting and sharing your stories. In fact, in the 2023 Ethical Storytelling Report, we actually found that 58% of nonprofit professionals said that they struggle with wanting to collect stories from their community while doing no harm. So that can be a huge barrier for people. In fact, I wonder if even some of you are feeling that way. Maybe some of you fall into that 58% currently. I want you to know a lot of people are feeling that way. So it is okay. And that's what we're here to help you with. So in terms of the collection process, if you are interested in giving MemoryFox a try, you can actually scan this QR code and it will take you to our demo campaign. You can see how the steps would go for the person that's going to submit the story to you. But basically how it works is when you become a MemoryFox storyteller, you create branded story collection campaigns that you send directly to the person you want to get the story from. So that could be all of your donors. It could be your board members, your volunteers, your program participants, and they're going to go through this process that just includes a few steps that does include consent up front, as well as a prompts page where you can make the prompts using your strength-based language and really getting to those questions so you can get those answers that you're really looking for. The really cool thing about the way we collect stories is that there's no download, don't have to download an app or anything. Nobody has to have a login. Nothing like that is required. And like I said, we do capture the consent up front. In terms of the organized portion of MemoryFox, once a video, photo, or written testimonial is submitted through a MemoryFox campaign, it all populates into your MemoryFox story bank. So your organization, everyone on your team will have access to approve, tag, filter, take a look at all those stories and see what makes sense for you to share in which places. Um, One other cool thing that we do offer is that you can bulk upload all of your existing content. So even if you are already have a bunch of stories maybe hanging out on your Google Drive, on your Dropbox, maybe on your own personal desktop, put all of those right into MemoryFox so everything is in your story bank all together. And then in terms of sharing, we have a lot of ways that we help nonprofits share their stories in a more compelling way. Number one would be that we are integrated with Canva. This presentation's actually been made with Canva. What that means is that when a nonprofit gets a video or a photo submitted to a campaign, it will automatically go to your Canva account, which means you can avoid the uploads, the downloads, the re-uploads, all that mess, and you're going to have the high quality original actually into your Canva account. Um, Also, we have a story builder. So we have a really easy way for you to put a lot of stories into one web page that can be embedded into your website, or it can just be shared on its own. And like I said, we do everything here at MemoryFox through an ethical storytelling lens. So some of the features that we offer that are specific to our ethical storytelling standards is equitable pricing. So that just means that we try to find a way to make every nonprofit able to use MemoryFox, and that is because we do believe every nonprofit does have great stories to tell. I already mentioned consent, but like I said, consent is a built-in form into MemoryFox. It's fully editable, so you can get all of the requirements in there that you need, unique at your organization. And we also offer a consent removal option because we do recognize that sometimes people will submit a story that they no longer would like to be public. In terms of privacy, unlike other platforms, unlike social media platforms, for example, MemoryFox never owns your content. The stories collected are specific to you at your organization. In terms of accessibility, the way the collection tool works, everybody can submit stories where and when they're comfortable using the device they're most comfortable on. They could be in the environment they're most comfortable in. That really reduces the stress that is put on your storyteller. And finally, everything about MemoryFox is customizable. So like I said before, you can use your community's strength-based language to actually communicate with them in the best way to get those great answers that you're looking for. So that's a really quick overview, but if anybody is interested in learning more about MemoryFox, I'd love for you to set up a time with my team. You can scan that QR code or you can head to our set up a demo page, or you can email me directly. I'm Carly at memoryfox.io. We would love to talk to you about what your pricing might be for a 12-month membership. I'd love to tell you more about our great customer success team, as well as how ethical storytelling fits into your overall storytelling goals. So thank you all so much for coming today. I would love to work with some of you in the future. I'd love to continue to have you come to more of our events. I really appreciate you coming today. And of course, big thanks to Sabrina and her wonderful presentation. Have a great rest of your day and happy May.